day, my dear grade 7 students. So how are you today? I'm hoping that all of you are doing fine in Simple 2. So for now, we're going to discuss about the measures of central tendency. Okay class, so take a look at this picture. As you would notice in this picture, so we have here different players, wherein these are mixed volleyball team, wherein of course, we presented the heights of the players. From that picture, so let's discuss about the measures of central tendency. So I have here a two-column table wherein we have the first column named as the player, the second column named as the heights in meter of the volleyball player. So we have there Marie, Donna, John, Beth, Arnel, David, Marvin, Eman, and Glenn. And then of course, we have here their heights in meter respectively as 1.54, 1.62, 1.62, 1.63, 1.65, 1.67, 1.74, 1.74, and 1.74. So the table presents the heights of the players in a mixed volleyball team. Then of course, these data have been collected. Some values are to be determined to help us interpret the data. We have three measures of central tendency. So what do you think are those? Of course, we have the mean, the median, and the mode. So, in discussing about the measures of central tendency, let us have first, what do we mean by the mean? Mean is commonly called the average. Take note of that. Mean is the average. The mean of the collected data, denoted by this symbol, is the sum of all the number divided by the total number of observations. So, for example, in this given table, we are going to add all the given heights, wherein the total is 14.95, and then divide this by the total number of observation, wherein we have 9. So, if you divide 14.95 divided by 9, so we have 1.66. Therefore, the mean of this given table, or of this given data, is 1.66. Of course, class, aside from our mean, let us have the median. What do we mean by the median? Remember that median is sometimes called the midpoint value. We determine the median denoted by this symbol. To get this, we need to arrange the data from least to greatest value, as you would see in this given example. Therefore, we are going to have the median as 1.65 because 1.65 is the midpoint value. Aside from the mean, the median, let's have the mode. When we say mode, this is the most common value in the set. So this is denoted by this symbol. It is the data point that occurs most often. As you would notice, 1.74 occurs 3 times. So therefore, the mode of this given is 1.74. So let us have now the detailed example for getting the measures of central tendency with ungroup and group data. Let us have first the ungrouped data. So the mean, median, and mode computed from the raw or ungrouped data are also called the primary data, wherein they have the exact values. Okay, for example, let's find the mean, the median, and the mode of the score of 8 students in a test wherein they have the score as 23, 25, 30, 19, 21, 23, 28, and 25. First, let us have the given. And then let us have the given formula wherein we have here the mean is equals into the sum of all the observations to be divided by the total number of observations in the given data. And then of course, we're going to have this as substitute from the given formula. So we have here now the mean is equals into 23 plus 25 plus 30 plus 19 plus 21 plus 23 plus 28 plus 25 to be divided by 8. So all in all, we have here 24.25 as our mean. And then of course, aside from that, let us have the median, wherein we need first to arrange the score from the least value up to the greatest value. So of course, you need to find for the midpoint value, wherein we have here 23 and 25. And then of course, you have here 23 plus 25 to be divided by 2. So therefore, the median is equals into 24. Because if you add 23 plus 25, that is 48. Divide this by 2. So we have here 24. Class, let us have now the mode. So based on our given table or given, what is the score or scores that occurs most often? So as you would notice, we have here 23, it occurs 2 times, and of course 25, it occurs also 2 times. So therefore, in this given set, our mode are 23 and 25. After we have the ungrouped data, let us have now the group data. So when the set of primary data is not available, we just estimate the values of the measures of central tendency using available data, like the group data. So this group data is considered as the secondary data. So let's move on. For example, these are the given scores and the frequency using the 2-column table. Let's solve for the mean, the median, and of course the mode. So let us have first the mean. So we mean is find using this given formula. Mean is equals into the frequency of each class interval to be divided by the class mark. So this will be the formula that we are going to use when you are finding for the mean for group data. Then of course, N is for the sum of the frequencies, or what do we call as the sample size. And of course, class, you need to follow the steps in finding for the mean. Find the midpoint of each class. That is the first step. Second step, you need to multiply the frequency by its corresponding midpoint. Then for the third step, you need to find for the products in step 2. Then in step 4, you need to divide the sum in the step 3 by the sum of the frequencies using the given formula. Let's move on into this given example. Let's find for the midpoint of each class. That is for the step 1. So as you would notice in this given example, what is the midpoint of each class? So it becomes 62 because you add 60 plus 64 and then divide this by 2. Then let's move on. 65 plus 69 divided by 2. So we have 67 as our class marks. 72, 77, 82, 87, 92, and 97 as the class marks. At step 2, let's multiply each frequency by its corresponding midpoint. Okay? So multiply the frequency to the class marks. So we are going to multiply 2 and 62, so that becomes 124. And then 5 and 67, we have 335. 9 and 72, we have 648. 10 and 77, 770. 8 and 82 is 656. 7 and 87 is 609. 5 and 92 is 460. 4 and 97 is equals into 388. Step 3, let's find the sum of the products in step 2. So you're just going to add the products to get the summation of the frequency and class mark. Okay? So that is equivalent into 3,990, 124 plus 335, plus 648 plus 717 plus 656, plus 609 plus 460 plus 388 is equivalent into 3,990. Step 4, we need to divide the sum in the step 3 by the sum of the frequencies. So divide 3,990 to our sum of the frequency, which is 50. So therefore, using this formula, so you have 3,990 divided by 50, so you have here 79.8. Move on into the median. So the earlier that we got is the mean. Then we have the median. So in median, we need to use the formula median is equals into the lower class boundary plus, of course, we have there the n, or the sample size, to be divided by 2 minus the cumulative frequency before the median class, to be divided by the frequency of the median class, and then of course to be multiplied by the class width or the class size. So this is the formula that we are going to use in finding for the median. Then we have here the steps to follow. The first one is to construct the cumulative frequency column. The second one is to determine the half of the total number of the values, or divide the sample size by 2. Then determine the value of the cumulative frequency before the median class. And then determine the frequency of the median class. Determine the lower boundary of the median class. Determine the class width or the class interval, where we have the difference between 2 consecutive lower limits. And then substitute the value obtained in the formula. And then, so let's move on. Let's get first the cumulative frequency. As you would notice in our previous discussion, wherein you can get the cumulative frequency by adding the first frequency to the second frequency. So you have here 2 as the first frequency, and then 2 plus 5, we have 7. 7 plus 9, we have 16. Then 26, 34, 41, 46, and of course 50. So these are the cumulative frequency. 2, let's determine the half of the total number of values. So divide 50 into 2 because 50 is the total number of frequency or total number of the values. Divide this by 2, so therefore we have there 25. So the median class is the interval that contains 25th data point or observation, which is in the interval of 75 to 79. The step 3, wherein you need to determine the value of the cumulative frequency before. Use the word before, take note of that, the median class. So we need to get the cumulative frequency before the median class on the cumulative frequency before the median class. So the median class here is 75 to 79, wherein we have there the frequency of 10, cumulative frequency of 26. Then of course, the cumulative frequency before the median class is 16. So therefore, the cumulative frequency before the median class is equivalent into 16. For step 4, determine the frequency of the median class. So, what is the frequency of the median class? As you would notice, the frequency of the median class is 10. So, therefore, we have there 10 as the frequency of the median class. Let's have the step 5. Let's determine the lower boundary of the median class. So, still our median class is 75 to 79. So, from the lower boundary wherein we have 75 because the upper boundary is 79. So, the lower class boundary is 75. Subtract this by 0.5. So, therefore, the lower class boundary is 74.5. Step 6, determine the class width or the class interval. So, it is the difference between two consecutive lower limits. So, the first lower limit is 60. The second lower limit is 65. So, subtract 65 minus 60. So, therefore, we have 5 as our class interval or class size or class width. Then, for the last step, you need to substitute the value obtained in the formula. So, let us have 74.5 as the lower class boundary, plus, of course, n over 2, that is 25, minus 16 as the frequency or cumulative frequency before the median class, to be divided by the frequency of the median class, to be multiplied by the class interval or class width. So, we have there 74.5 plus 4.5. So, 4.5 because subtract 25 minus 16 and then divide this by 10 and then of course multiply the answer by 5 so it becomes 4.5. So you have there the median as 79. Have the mode. So mode can be obtained by using this formula. Mode is equal to the lower class boundary of the modal class plus, okay, you have there the difference of the frequency of the modal class and the class interval before it. Then the difference of the frequency of the modal class and the next class after it, and then multiply this by the class width or class size. These are the steps to follow in finding for the mode. The first one is to determine the modal class. So the modal class contains the highest frequency in the distribution, and then find the value of d sub 1. Third one is find the value of d sub 2. Then determine the lower boundary or lower class boundary of the modal class, and then substitute the value obtained in the formula. Let us have this given. So the modal class contains the highest frequency in the distribution. So what is the class that contains the highest frequency distribution? So of course we have there 10. So you have the modal class as 75 to 79. Find the value of d sub 1. So d sub 1 is the difference of the frequency of the modal class and the class interval before it. So your modal class is 10. The frequency is 10 minus 9 as the frequency before the modal class. So you have there 1 as d sub 1. Step 3, we need to find the value of d sub 2. So d sub 2 is the difference of the frequency of the modal class and the next class after it. So the modal class is 10 as the frequency and then minus 8. So you have 2 as the value of your d sub 2. Step 4, determine the lower class boundary of the modal class. So the modal class is 75 minus 79 or 75 to 79 with a frequency of 10. So subtract 75 minus 0.5. So you have the lower class boundary as 74.5. Substitute the value obtained in the given formula. So 74.5 as the lower class boundary plus d sub 1 is 1 over 1 plus 2 to be multiplied by 5 as the class interval. So you have there 74.5 plus 1.67. So therefore, our mode is 76.17. So always remember, the measures of central tendency are the mean, the median, and the mode of a set of observations. The mean is sum of the observations divided by the total number of observations. Then the median is the middlemost score when the data is arranged in order. And the mode is the data that occurs most frequently. Okay, so that would be all for today. Stay healthy and stay safe. Thank you and God bless everyone. Thank you for listening.